On 5 News, speaking out over the UKIP bust-up. As Stephen Wolfe is kept in hospital, the other politician involved insists no punches were thrown.
I never laid a hand on him. There is no marks on my hand. There is no marks on his face.
Also, the deadly force of Hurricane Matthew. More than 570 people are now known to have been killed in Haiti. In America, over 500,000 homes are without power.
And I gamble responsibly at Bet365.
Could gambling adverts be banned from daytime television to protect children? And Brian Blessed describes his delight as he gets a gong from the Queen.
I'm cock-a-hoop. I think it's terrific. I loved it. It's wonderful. I just, it's marvellous. I mean, she's very special.
Welcome to 5 News. I'm Julian Drucker. It's the row that left the leadership frontrunner unconscious on the floor and threatens to leave UKIP's credibility in tatters. But 24 hours on from the dramatic bust-up in Strasbourg, and with Stephen Wolfe still in hospital, the man at the centre of the allegations has spoken out to deny that any punches were thrown. MEP Mike Hookham insists it was just a scuffle. Layla Hayes reports.
Smiling from his hospital bed, Stephen Wolfe is now said to be on good form. He was admitted yesterday following an altercation with fellow UKIP MEP Mike Hookham. But this morning, visiting colleagues said although yesterday things were touch and go, Mr Wolfe has now emailed Mr Hookham and doesn't want to involve the police.
Stephen has this morning reached out the hand of friendship to Mr Hookham, to Mike, and has realised that things did go too far in the MEP meeting.
Exactly what happened here at the European Parliament is still unclear. There were claims Stephen Wolfe had been punched before collapsing 2 hours later. That's something Mike Hookham has strongly denied, saying the dispute was no more than a scuffle.
I have to say quite strongly, there was no punches thrown. I never hit him, he never hit me. I never laid a hand on him. There is no marks on my hand, there is no marks on his face. I received an email from him this morning saying he regrets it all, he wants to meet and he wants to shake hands. I've sent an email back to him saying, I'm quite happy with that, Steve, we'll meet up and we'll shake hands and forget about it.
Arriving back from Strasbourg this morning, Nigel Farage told 5 News the truth will come out.
I've launched an investigation. 2 senior party officers will take witness statements from everybody inside and outside that room, and we will know by the middle of next week exactly what happened. And I think anybody, any representative of UKIP, going on the airwaves now, opining about something where they weren't even present, I think frankly is wrong, particularly given that a man is lying ill in hospital.
Stephen Wolfe will be kept in hospital for another 48 hours as a precaution. He may now be on the mend. The damage to the reputation of the party may take longer to heal.
Layla, we've heard so many claims and counterclaims on this story, haven't we? What exactly happens now?
Well, as well as UKIP's own investigation into this, there will also be an investigation by the European Parliament. Its President, Martin Schulz, has today called this incident very regrettable. Interesting, though, that in spite of the fact that Stephen Wolfe is still lying in a hospital bed, there's been no involvement by police, and he's made it clear he doesn't want any. He, of course, is seen by many as the front runner to be the next UKIP leader. Whether he continues in that leadership race will very much depend on the results of this investigation. The turmoil for UKIP isn't over yet.
Layla, thank you very much for that. Hurricane Matthew is the strongest storm to hit the Caribbean in a decade, and for a country still dealing with the effects of a deadly earthquake 6 years ago, its impact on Haiti has been devastating. It's estimated 572 people were killed when winds of over 140 miles per hour destroyed thousands of homes. And the danger isn't over yet. It's now barreling along the Florida coast, with mass evacuations having taken place across 4 US states. Simon Vigar has the details.
Another natural disaster has devastated Haiti, one of the poorest countries in the world. This woman says, I need medicine. My son and I are sick. It's been almost 3 days and we still haven't got anything. Roads and communications weren't good before the hurricane, so getting medical supplies and food through now is even harder. This Red Cross worker says, after visiting the shelter, I've realised there isn't any water. We can't help the people. There's no food. As people make their repairs, they are simply glad to have survived.
Between 6 and 7:30, it was the worst. Then we thought it was over and everybody came out, then they spent about an hour. Then it started over again and it was the worst part of it. But by God's grace, we had no death.
It's not just Haiti, of course. This is Cuba, which was badly hit, as was the Dominican Republic. While most people try to avoid hurricanes, the scientists of America's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration like to fly straight through them. It looks like a high-speed car wash, and then they are out through to the other side. It helps them and NASA to build 3D graphics like this, which give you an idea of the amount of energy and water involved. Energy, or a lack of it, was the main problem in Florida overnight. Power lines were down in many towns, including this dramatic display in Cocoa Beach. Daylight brought confirmation the eye of the storm has not made landfall in the United States. It is off the coast and staying parallel to it. But the president says people must still evacuate.
I think the bigger concern at this point is not just hurricane force winds, but storm surge. Many of you will remember Hurricane Sandy, where initially people thought this doesn't look as bad as we thought, and then suddenly you get massive storm surge and a lot of people were severely affected.
Most people are heeding the warnings, and in the US, unlike Haiti, the roads are good enough for people to get away. Simon Viger, 5 News.
5 people have been taken to hospital after a group of suspected illegal immigrants, including children, were found in the back of a freezer lorry on the M25. The driver stopped at Clackett Lane services earlier this morning after hearing loud banging from inside the vehicle. The group have been detained on suspicion of illegal entry into the UK. Former Radio 1 DJ Chris Denning has been jailed for 13 years for abusing 11 boys, some as young as 8 years old. The 75-year-old pleaded guilty to the offences, which took place at the Walton Hop Disco between 1969 and 1986. He is already serving a 13-year jail sentence for a series of sexual assaults against 24 other victims. The director of the company that managed the Cheeky Rafiki yacht has been charged with manslaughter after the boat capsized, killing its 4 crew members. The 40-foot vessel went missing in the North Atlantic in 2014 while the crew were returning it from Antigua to the UK. Now, they're a regular feature of daytime TV and social media, gambling adverts. But 5 News understands that the government could now be considering banning them before the watershed over fears they're influencing children. The proportion of 18 to 24-year-olds with a serious betting problem has trebled in recent years. Dominic Reynolds has been talking to a man who says his life was ruined by it.
Keep your eye on the ball.
If you watch football on TV, half-time often looks like this.
Get a £3 free bet every time.
But online gambling is an adults-only activity. So should these adverts air at an adults-only time? It's thought the government is considering banning them before the watershed.
Tap, tap, boom.
I lost everything. I lost £750,000 over 3 years. I lost my wife, my children, my home, my job, my reputation, and I lost my self-esteem.
Justin believes children need protecting from the sort of gambling cycle he slipped into. He placed his first bet during a rugby game after he saw a pitchside advert on TV. He lost that bet and spent 3 years trying and failing to win back his losses.
Must have been stressful. Incredibly stressful, and actually the stress is something you want to escape from. And so it was like a cycle. To get away from the reality of the world I'd created and the fact that my wife was going to find out and potentially lose my family, it would just chase me back. I used to be happy when I was sitting in front of a terminal, wired back into this chance to win everything back.
He believes in many cases TV betting ads do appeal to children.
They're also the most adept at smartphone technology. It's very, very easy now for them to place a bet. It's normalised.
30% of adults gamble at least once a month, and that doesn't include the lottery. As mobile gambling has grown, problem gambling has almost doubled from 0.4% to 0.7% of the population over the last 3 years. But it's trebled amongst young people. 1.5% of 18 to 24-year-olds has a gambling problem. Advertising a product viewers may already have in their hands has proven a lucrative game plan for broadcasters, and some experts reckon this ban will never really happen because there's simply too much money being made.
This is a hammer to crack a nut. What it would do is ruin sport on TV because the advertising pays for the sport on TV.
I gamble responsibly.
1 in 6 under-16s does gamble, according to recent figures. Problem gaming charities are welcoming a prospective pre-watershed ad ban. But industry players may see it as an own goal. Dominic Reynolds, 5 News.
Still to come on the programme. In memory of Margot, her father's campaign to help others needing a blood stem cell donation. And a big day for a big character. Brian Blessed gets his OBE from the Queen.
She just chuckled and chuckled and chuckled.
All of that and more after the break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News. The Bank of England says it's examining a so-called flash crash overnight that sent the pound diving. Traders were left baffled by the temporary slump, which saw sterling fall by as much as 6% on the Asian markets before recovering minutes later. Well, Sam Naz is in the city for us now. So, Sam, what exactly has been going on?
Well, Julian, this is thought to be the biggest plunge in the pound's value for 31 years. It all kicked off at around midnight UK time. There was a lot of activity and the pound was suddenly being sold off in large amounts, causing it to fall dramatically by 6%. Now, that's a huge amount in market terms. It dropped to just $1.18. But as you can see, it did jump back up quickly and has now stabilized to around $1.24. So what caused this flash crash? It could have just been simply a slip of the finger by a trader, but some analysts think that a computer glitch could have been to blame. Well, whatever it was, the Bank of England are keen to find out. They're looking into it because the markets have been so jumpy since the Brexit vote, and they want to make sure that this kind of panic won't happen again.
Thank you, Sam. Jeremy Corbyn has continued with the reshuffle of his shadow cabinet this afternoon. In the latest appointment, John Ashworth has been made Shadow Health Secretary. He replaces Diane Abbott, who was promoted to Shadow Home Secretary. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos has been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his role in bringing the 52-year conflict with left-wing FARC rebels to an end. The conflict has killed around 260,000. Mr. Santos was selected from a list of over 300 nominees, which included the Syrian White Helmets and Greek islanders living on the front line of the refugee crisis. And England's cricketers have been playing their first full game in the Bangladesh capital, Dhaka, amid heavy security. Their tour was almost cancelled after Dhaka was hit by a terrorist attack in June that killed 29 people, including 18 foreigners. 2 players dropped out because of the security concerns. When 2-year-old Margot Martini lost her battle with a rare form of blood cancer, her family were determined it would not be in vain. Their desperate search for a stem cell and bone marrow for Margot led to them setting up a charity encouraging others to become donors. And today, 3 years after she was first diagnosed, a song's been released to emphasise the importance of joining the register. Louise Beale has met her father.
I love you. Little Margot Martini was an inspiration to anyone who met her. She was only 14 months old when she was diagnosed with a rare form of blood cancer. Despite receiving a bone marrow transplant, she died shortly after her 2nd birthday.
So say never ride the way.
3 years on from her diagnosis, her family have launched this single, written with Margot in mind, in a bid to get more people to join the bone marrow and stem cell donor registers. Her father told me they want to help others like Margot, as well as keep her memory alive.
She was a wonderful blessing, and full of life and verve. She was just a lovely little girl. We do this in memory of Margot to honour her legacy, but it makes me feel a bit better as well. And we're saving people's lives. Literally, we're saving lives by just making people aware, encouraging them to register, and getting them to do that same process again, and encourage just one more person to do the same.
Margot's family have set up a charity in her name and took their message to Piccadilly Circus in the heart of London today. They say becoming a donor is so easy and could help other families in the way Margot's donor helped them.
And what we saw, thanks to the benevolence of a stem cell donor and many blood and platelet donors, we kept her clinically well for a year after diagnosis, and during that time we saw her blossom from being an infant to a little toddler. Right, little madam. So she was wonderful.
There are just over 1 million people currently on the UK stem cell register. Margot's family hope with this single they can raise awareness and double that number. Louise Beale, 5 News.
The story there of brave Margot Martini. Now, he's normally known for his loud, booming voice, but there was a rare moment of calm from actor Brian Blessed today as he received an OBE from the Queen at Windsor Castle. The Flash Gordon star was collecting the gong for his services to arts and charity. Ruth Liptrot has been speaking to the man who's been a permanent fixture on our screens for decades.
He's the larger-than-life character with a voice that's even bigger. And today, Brian Blessed got his OBE from the Queen for services to arts and charity. How did that feel?
Miraculous. I'm cock-a-hoop. I think it's terrific. I loved it. It's wonderful. I just, she's very special. She has an extraordinary kind of quality, mystical quality.
But it's not entirely surprising. The Queen was an avid viewer of him in Z-Cars as Fancy Smith.
And anyone who spoils my patch with trouble gets a back end of my hand.
Was she glad to see you?
She was. She just chuckled and chuckled and chuckled.
I can't imagine why. He describes his career as being half actor, half explorer. On the acting side, we all know him from Flash Gordon.
With all his men, he couldn't even kill Flash.
Gordon's alive?
And then later on from Blackadder.
After all, it is St. Leonard's Day. There's meant to be some entertainment. Good, very good. Take your pleasures.
But he's also a talented mountaineer, having climbed Kilimanjaro and made 3 attempts to climb Everest. The thing about Brian Blessed is, for all of his many achievements, he's best loved for being Brian Blessed. And he's got an opinion on everything. He certainly has. This was how he felt about the planes flying over Windsor.
Sorry about the aeroplanes. That damned aeroplane. Get off! Why doesn't she order them not to come here?
I know.
I'll talk to her about it.
This is what he thinks about people who turn down OBEs and MBEs.
Turning it down? No, you don't insult the Queen, for goodness sake. She's got a hell of a job on. It's hard work. I've got no time for them. Pretentious rubbish.
And these are his thoughts on Donald Trump.
He's ghastly. He repulses me. I think I'd have to kick him straight over the bloody moon.
Fairly unequivocal, but let's get back to Brian and that famous catchphrase that everyone asked him to say.
This Maasai chief, I was halfway up Kilimanjaro and he came out of a hut and he went, "Oh, it's him? Oh, please say it." And so I went, "Gordon's alive!" Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian.
Gordon may well be alive, but so is Brian. Very much so. Ruth Liptrot, 5 News.
He said it. That is it for now. I'm back at 6:30 with 5 News tonight, when we'll have lots more on today's top stories. I'll be speaking to the man at the centre of those UKIP allegations, MEP Mike Hookham. I'll be hearing his full version of events about what happened with fellow MEP Stephen Wolfe yesterday. Plus, we'll be live in Florida for the latest on Hurricane Matthew, as President Obama warns residents the danger hasn't gone away. And do you remember this?
This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade. And the papers want to know whose shirts you wear.
Commander Chris Hadfield will be joining me in the studio. He became a superstar spaceman during his time on the International Space Station. He'll be telling me about his new book for children and how he wants to get them excited about space travel. Kirsty's got the weather next. I'll see you again at 6:30. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.